Yeah.
Surprise!
Yeah. You have no idea what you're in for.
Yeah. We can cut this, right? Like,
Yeah.
this we cut out.
Yeah. We can. Welcome to the Magically Wired podcast. I'm Danielle and this is Megan.
And we are here to talk about embracing neurodiversity, telling our stories and our journeys along the way, all about promoting autism acceptance, appreciation, empowerment, advocacy, all the while learning about neurodiversity affirming care and parenting, and still unlearning ableism together. And to start, we will tell a little bit about our stories and wrap it up by bringing this all together and giving you an idea of where we're going with our podcast. So I'm going to let Danielle start and tell her story about her daughter, Lucy.
So again, my name is Danielle and my daughter Lucy is 6 years old. She'll be 6 in August. She is non-speaking autistic. And she was diagnosed, I'd say, right before her second birthday. And we were able to get into Kennedy Krieger Institute. And after a mighty long wait, mighty long wait.
It's a little systemic problem.
Yeah, just a little bit. Anyway, I felt like when Lucy was, I'd say, 6 to 9 months, she was developing kind of differently, I'd say. Things that stuck out, just she wasn't really responding to her name. She wasn't really, I hate this word, functional play.
Yes.
I hate saying that, but you know. So we went to the pediatrician. I had a few questions and they kind of just blew me off. And I wasn't really happy with their answers. I feel like my friends and family kind of just were like, no, she's fine.
Topic for another podcast.
Yeah, all kids are developed differently, which I know they do, but I knew that I needed to intervene. So I started calling KKI. I would call them once a month to try to get on, every wait list there is. Finally, we were able to get our appointment. And it's funny because a few weeks before my appointment, my dad came over and he was like, I really need to talk to you. And I'm like, about what? Is everything okay? You're scaring me. And he's like, well, I don't want to make you mad and I don't want to make you upset, but I just really don't know how to say it. And I'm like, say it. What? I won't get mad. And he's like, Lucy just kind of beats to her own drum. And it was funny because I started to cry. Not because I was mad, not because, I think that, she was autistic. But I felt seen because I felt like for so long, everyone kind of just blew me off. And I felt like someone else seeing it and validating my feelings. It was like, someone please listen. But then I reassured my dad that we had an appointment with Kennedy Krieger, which we did. And right before her second birthday, a few weeks before her second birthday, we had all the assessments and the long hours which was during COVID. So we were doing everything virtual. And I was like, how is someone going to diagnose a child through a computer, especially a child who's younger than 2 years old? Yeah. How do you expect a child to stay in front of a camera? I was so just
skeptical.
Yes, very skeptical. But we did get our diagnosis. I was not surprised. My husband, he did cry. But I just knew she was going to be okay. She had us. I would say at that appointment where you get a diagnosis, they just go in on all these therapies you need immediately. They're like, you need to do this therapy, you need OT, you need PT, you need speech, you need ABA, 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 like right now. And I'm like, but there's a wait for ABA, like there's a wait for OT. What are you talking about? Right now, like they are like fix your child right now
Yes.
before it is too late.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? There's nothing wrong with her.
And then they kick you out the door.
Yes.
And say goodbye.
Yes.
See you in 9 months.
Yes.
And you have a laundry list
Yes.
of things.
Yeah, like it's an info dump. It's crazy. So that's where it all began. And then a couple weeks later, we were able to get speech therapy. And I was kind of, I don't know how to explain it, like salty, because I felt like they gave me this laundry list of things to do for her, and I didn't feel like she needed it all at once. And again, everything through Zoom, I'm like, what can this speech person like do for Lucy through Zoom? You know, like
Yeah.
what is this woman gonna do for me? So, okay, flash forward to Lucy's first appointment. We are on Zoom. I'm kind of salty. I have my resting bitch face on. And then our speech therapist like appears on the camera, and it happened to be Megan. So, her smile, her aura, her everything about her just made me feel, it changed my attitude completely right away. I felt comfortable with her. I started to just look forward to our sessions. I felt like she did amazing job through COVID, through Zoom with what she had. But that is how Megan and I met. And here we are today on our podcast.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
It's been a journey. Quite the
Before,
journey.
and KKI has a policy where you don't have speech therapy for longer periods of time. So it's 12
Yes.
weeks. And Danielle made sure to ask how we would stay in contact
Yes.
after the 12 weeks, which brings us to our friendship now.
Yeah, definitely. Megan has been working with Lucy now for,
Oh my gosh, since,
like 4 years.
yeah.
Yeah, almost 4
Yeah.
years. That's
Wow,
crazy.
that is crazy.
Yeah. So Megan is my superhero. I want to be like her when I grow up. She's one of the most amazing people I know. She teaches me every day new things, especially, neurodiversity affirming and fighting ableism. So again, that's why we're here today.
Yeah, right back at you, huh?
Thanks.
Yes. Yes, I learned just as much from all of my clients and friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's hard to follow that story.
I know, but
yeah. So I have been a speech therapist since 2012. I worked at KKI where I got all of my developmental training, learned all about autism. And I primarily worked on diagnostic teams, but I also did a lot of parent training and early intervention with younger kids. And none of that prepared me for having my first son, Henry. When I was pregnant with him, I found out that he was going to be born with cystic fibrosis, which I knew nothing about. And that really set us into a whirlwind of doctor's appointments, understanding medical challenges and differences, and handling that as a first-time mom, which was hard. And when he was born, I think his life expectancy was lower. It was in the early 30s. And as a parent, I think one of the worst possible things that you can hear is that you are going to outlive your child.
Yeah.
That they're going to be sick, and that they're going to struggle with life. And so that was a hard time. And it's a lot of trauma that I don't even think I've uncovered yet in my life. And all the while, I'm still working with families, delivering news that, families come into the Center for Autism for a diagnosis. And there's such a stigma in our society that this is going to be this dreaded dark appointment and that we're delivering this terrible news. And after being on the other side as a parent, it really changed my perspective as a clinician into, not only is this not a death sentence, right? Because what I received was a death sentence for my kid in a medical way.
Yeah.
But our delivery in our society and our medical system has got to change. As a parent receiving this information, I was torn apart at how cold some of the professionals could be, how, they could tell me all of these things I had to do, treatments, medications, doctor's appointments, without ever asking me, like, how are you? Right. Are you okay? Do you have time for this? Like, how can we help you navigate this? Do you need a hug? Like, something.
Right. There
There was not a lot of compassion. And so I think Henry's CF diagnosis really changed how I approached families. In the work that I was doing, and I saw a better response. And at this point, I didn't really know a lot about the neurodiversity movement, but I could feel it, right, in these more positive interactions with families and how people really needed to know that their kids weren't changed. Like, they're the same kid that they came into this building. They can do all of the same things as everybody else, and they're amazing. Yeah. There's nothing bad about this. And fast forward a little bit, when Henry was between 6 and 12 months old, I knew that he was neurodivergent. I knew he was autistic.
Yeah.
He had some of the early signs or characteristics that I noticed were he didn't laugh until late, even though he smiled a lot. There was just this, he had a preference for attending to and playing with items or objects. Mm-hmm. And so with people, he would smile, he would look, but it wasn't the same sort of connection that he had with the things around him. I would always joke that I could leave him in a playroom for like 30 minutes and come back and he would be in the same spot, not moved, but happy as a clam.
Yeah.
He talked early. So he knew nursery rhymes, he knew full songs, he memorized sayings. I think his first curse word was around 18 months old because he picked up that whole phrase threw it out there. Oh my fucking God. So he threw that out there. But he still, even though he could sing Itsy Bitsy Spider from beginning to end, he could not say, Mommy, help. And I knew that was different as an SLP.
Yeah.
He was very good and early, very similar to Lucy at acquiring his letters, numbers, colors, shapes, all the things. But we were blown off by every single professional, many family members, friends. But, to their, credit, Henry was definitely different than I think society portrays autism to be.
Agreed.
And there was just me with all of this like anxiety unknown and no community when he was younger, until one day my husband came to me, who also, bless his heart, didn't really buy into the idea. He came to me and he said, I think we need to make an appointment. I think he's autistic. Like, we need a diagnosis. So finally, when Henry was 4, he got a diagnosis, even though I knew all along.
Did you get it through card?
We did not.
Okay.
So I wanted an unbiased opinion, and I worked with all the doctors and professionals. Yeah. So we went to CHOP in Philly, which was a fine experience. But going back to sort of the medical system and ableism and all that we can talk about that on a different day.
Yes.
That was a tough point because I think even though I know everything that I know, and I believe in these kids and I believe in their families, as a mom, the anxiety that you have for what's to come or what to expect or what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And also how hard things might be for your child. That was hard. And I think what's always been hard for me and Henry, especially as he's gotten older, has been our brains are different. And I really just long for his perspective.
Yes. Like if
And
you could just get inside there
yes,
for a day.
yes. And just like
Yes.
reciprocally too, like him
Yes.
from my perspective,
Yes.
I just like want to know him and help him and love him in all the ways. And of course I do the best that I can. But that fuels my anxiety for, the day that comes where I'm not here, or
Yes.
that
Ugh.
or that he wants to like leave, or like go somewhere else or like experience his life. That makes me scared.
It's okay because Ali's going to live with you
He
forever.
One of them is living with me forever. And I think it's, I think there is like a misunderstanding out there too that parents are mourning this diagnosis. They're mourning their kids. And like as a parent who, has been there, I've never mourned the kid that I didn't have. Like I've never mourned Henry or his diagnosis. I think it's more of an anxiety and a feeling that I wish society would change and like better accept him and embrace him and who he is.
Yes.
And I can't say that is the case for everybody, but everybody has a different experience.
Yes. And I mean, I totally agree. I feel like at first, my perspective was like the grief narrative and mourning the child that you were supposed to have, quotation marks.
Yeah. But this is what society feeds you.
Yes,
It's
society like it. They like breed it, and the doctors go along with it. It's
They totally do.
insane.
Yeah.
And it really like I'm lucky I've had you to kind of change my perspective and just point things out to me that I'm like, huh, like that, moment.
Yeah, I still have them every day.
Yeah, every day. But I do like when you think about it, and it's like neuro affirming is like human affirming.
Yes.
Like there's no other way to say it.
No. And this is your experience.
Yes.
This is your life.
Yes.
There's no standard way of living. There's no
Yes.
standard way of being. So we're always measuring our experiences and like our kids and ourselves and what we have up to this false narrative.
Yeah.
And that's what fuels the grief, right? The sadness, the wanting to fix.
Yes.
And I think, our family has this unique perspective where we have a child who has a progressive chronic medical condition, who's also neurodivergent. And being autistic is far from a death sentence. Right? Because we've experienced that.
Right.
And we are lucky, just so that all the listeners know, that Henry is doing medically very well.
Yes.
He is a miracle.
Yeah.
Not that I believe in miracles, but I mean, if there are miracles, he is one. Henry is on a drug that is going to help him live until the doctors think 70 or 80 years old, which is literally a double in the lifespan we were told. And he still spends a good amount of time doing his treatments and medications, but there is an expectation that with time, even those can be replaced with exercise, which is incredible.
So incredible.
So amazing. So no longer a death sentence.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
It is amazing. And like if you just change your perspective, I really think it truly does help, and it helps you embrace your child like even more.
Yes.
Like I'm obsessed with Lucy.
Yes, me
like
too.
I
Me
think
too. Lucy is the coolest for everybody.
She
No.
is.
Yes.
And the cutest.
The cutest.
It just I think she's amazing for so many other qualities. Like it's crazy, like I said, that people are still like ableist, and it doesn't help like when you go to these doctors and they have outdated information.
Yeah.
Like you were saying earlier, like no one thought Henry was autistic because he could talk and he could sing and
Make good eye contact.
he,
Don't
yeah,
forget the eye
he
contact.
can make eye contact, but he's also a people pleaser.
He is.
And like,
Yeah,
it's just infuriating
it is. It
that
is.
because the data that these doctors are going off of, it's so outdated that Henry's not autistic enough,
Oh, yes. No.
which we will also get into in a different episode.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, Henry, like, he doesn't check all of the boxes clearly, right? And that has been a challenge in and of itself.
Yes.
And the system is not set up for neurodivergence.
No.
It's just not.
Not any of them.
No, I mean, neurotypical brains are the standard. They are the ultimate brains. That's what everybody is heading towards. And if you divert enough, you might get some support. And if you don't divert enough, you don't get support, but you also don't get acknowledgement and encouragement because you're not quite there, but you can just shape up and get there.
Right.
And that's been a whole other pill to swallow.
Yeah.
So speaking of, our passion for changing the world, changing society, and really just helping people to understand our kids, I've made a huge shift in my practices. And I really, truly believe in the power of teaching our kids that they are amazing and they are unique and that they don't need to change, they don't need to be fixed. And as parents and clinicians, we don't need to fix our kids.
Yeah.
I believe in connection and I believe in being a strengths-based clinician and mom,
Yeah.
focusing on what our kids can do, fueling that, and not forgetting the things that they struggle with, but teaching them how to advocate for the supports that they need to have equal opportunities with everybody else. And so for me, every person I come in contact with, parent, SLP, other profession, my biggest goal is to change perspectives, to change the narrative, and to really embrace this change. Therapy doesn't have to be forever.
Yeah.
And an autism diagnosis doesn't mean your kid needs therapy. But we need to, and I'm an SLP, so I'm biased,
Yeah.
but we need to put our focus on communication and how to give these kids a way to communicate the amazing, complex things that are in their brains.
Yes. And to advocate for themselves.
To advocate. Exactly.
Yes.
I want you to feel comfortable telling other people.
No, bitch.
Yes. Telling them how you feel, what
Yes.
you need to
Yes.
shut up, that you want to move on, that they
Right.
don't understand. And I think, obviously, communication comes in all forms. Henry most commonly uses spoken communication. Lucy uses
AAC.
AAC. She uses a speech-generating device. But I think both of our kids communicate in a lot of other ways, too,
Yes.
that others might not honor or value all the time, which is important to note. But, my goal as an SLP is really to just keep fueling the movement and helping parents to see the best in their babies
Yes.
and to really enjoy the here and now, the present.
Yes.
Wasting your time on therapies and hours of commuting and doing this and that. I mean, therapy at home, sitting down for
Yeah.
hours and doing things, that is not living.
Yeah.
And you're going to look back and you're going to be like, I missed that time. You're not
Yes.
going to get it back.
Yes.
And so, drop it.
Yeah.
Just see the beauty in your kid and help them find their voice, help them
Yes.
find who they are and, push them to be the best that they can be.
Yeah.
And you have to also believe in that.
Yes.
You can't wear the facade that we're okay with this and not believe it. You have
Exactly.
to really embrace it and be there.
Yes, definitely. And I feel very lucky that I found you. And when I found you, I didn't know that you had, Henry.
Yeah, yeah.
So I feel like when you can find a great provider who does, therapy or any kind of doctor, really,
Yeah.
like if you can find one that has like, I don't know, any kind of like,
Personal experience.
yes,
Yes.
in our world,
Yeah. Yeah.
it would be a better experience
Yes.
for you.
And yeah, newsflash to everyone.
Yeah.
There are autistic providers.
Yes.
There are doctors, social workers, speech therapists, occupational therapists that are autistic. And I mean, we are in a very privileged place, like my family, where we can be picky about who we choose to be our therapist. And not everybody's that lucky, but we really try to gravitate towards neuro affirming, obviously, providers, but also providers who are neurodivergent themselves or have kids who fall somewhere in that area.
Yes.
Because I do think when you talk to somebody who gets it, it is a completely different experience.
I mean, some of these providers don't even have kids, let
100%.
alone
Yes.
an autistic child,
Exactly.
let alone a non-speaking autistic child.
Yes.
It makes
And
me
it's not to say they aren't a great provider, that they won't be a great provider, but it is like when you're in a certain place, I think you need that as a parent. I think it's really important.
Yeah, agreed. And it makes me laugh. Megan always says, like when before Henry, with her clients, she's like, ugh, cringe. Like
I would go back and apologize to each one of them. I am so sorry.
Yeah.
And that was before having kids, let alone like a kid with all of, these different profiles of needs and challenges and strengths and amazing things.
Right.
But even parents, I would say, like, you got to take the pacifier away, or like, when he throws his body on the ground, you just have to ignore him. Like, oh my gosh, I wish I could just erase it from time.
I know.
It's terrible. Terrible. I'm sorry if anyone's listening and I gave that advice. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget to subscribe and tune in to our next episode. Thanks for listening. Stay weird.
Yay! And magical.
And magical. All right.
Cut.